If you get a perfect verbal score and a 50th percentile score in quant, puts you right at 740. But if you flip those around, if you get 50th percentile in verbal and a perfect quant score, you're sitting at like 640. So I saw that verbal was weighted much heavier. I do what I usually do. I go to YouTube to try to learn stuff. I came across the GMAT Ninja verbal series where Charles went through questions live and just talked about his thought process behind them. That was really helpful in critical reasoning, reading comp. So that kind of laid my foundation for approaching the questions. And once I got that down, I would go to the GMAT Club forums and just sort by difficulty. I think always like 700 plus. And then just go through, keep the error log, and get questions right or wrong.
Say more about kind of overall, we're using other questions in it. So GMAT official guides, how much official guide stuff were you doing versus LSAT? Were you using any non-official verbal questions? Tell us a little bit more about kind of that overall balance over the couple months of your prep.
For sure. So first, non-official questions, I stayed away from those like as much as I could. I took a couple practice verbal sections from various companies, and I scored like -7, -9 on those right after I would score like a near perfect on official GMAT verbals. So you really want to stick to official GMAT. With that being said, I didn't plan too well for the future when I started studying, and I used up a lot of my official guide questions. Like those are gold, so you want to not use them all up at once. The LSAT, I'll kind of break it down into two things, the LR and then the reading comp. So the LR, it's slightly different than GMAT critical reasoning because it's logical reasoning. So it's very strict, logic-based, and it's good for getting your like fundamental logic skills down. But the critical reasoning, it's a little broader than just pure logic. Critical reasoning is going to test your brainstorming skills, your creative thinking skills, and how you can apply that to logic in like usually business scenarios, but really anything. So you got to keep that in mind when you're studying LR, that it's not going to be exactly like that on the exam, but it's a really good underlying skill to get good at. So that's what I would use the LR for. Transition into CR as you get closer to your exam. And like I said, just apply those skills. The other half, reading comp, LSAT reading comp passages, they're hard. They're really difficult. They're longer. They have harder questions, and you're expected to do them in shorter times. So those three factors combined made it a really helpful study tool. And then transitioning back to GMAT, it feels a lot easier. I think Charles said once, it's like swinging with a weighted bat and then taking the weight off. I swung on those the GMAT passages like that, and it felt really nice. So I would definitely recommend the LSAT passages for reading comp. Like 8 or 10.
Whoa.
It was about a month there that like I woke up, worked out, ate, showered, and then just did GMAT. And that was my life.
So in kind of that month where you spent 8 to 10 hours a day doing mostly verbal, about how many practice questions were you doing in that time?
I don't know. I think I would spend about maybe 10 minutes on average per question. So that's 6 times 8, like 50 questions, 60 questions a day. The reason I say like 10 minutes per question is because I wouldn't just do a question, get it wrong, and move on to the next one. Like every question that I got either right or wrong, I would always dig a layer deeper and then a layer deeper than that on why did I get this question right or wrong. Because if you get a question right, but you don't know why, it's as good as getting it wrong. It's actually worse because you mislead yourself to thinking, oh, I'm good on whatever topic I got right. But if you don't know exactly why and what topic the GMAT's testing, why you got that right, you're not helping yourself at all. So that's why I spent 10 minutes as opposed to 2 or 3 on each question. I did this with a friend a lot, a friend studying the LSAT. So what we would do, we would get on a call, put like a reading comp passage in the doc, and we just read it together silently. And then once the first question comes up, be like, hey, what'd you get? What'd you get? And we would talk about our answers. And then if we got different answers, what we would do is argue with each other on why the answer is what we think it is. And that trained me like so well to back up my answers through the text. Because if I had to defend my answer against my best friend and say, no, I think it's B because it says right here this, and it's also really helpful if I get it wrong because he says, no, it's C because this line in the text. And I was like, oh, I didn't really see that on the first pass through. So that was a big help. And we didn't allow each other to guess on any question because we were both shooting for perfection. So we'd sometimes sit on a question for 10, 15 minutes until we found the right answer. Because it's like, what are you doing if you're just going to guess, get the question wrong, and then, or maybe get it right? Like, it doesn't matter. So you need to spend the time, dive deep in the text, and then like find out why you're not getting the right answer too. Not just how to get it, but like why are you not getting the right answer? So that process was key. I have finished about 3 or 4 books in my life. One of those being Diary of a Wimpy Kid, Hunger Games, things like that. In reading classes, I would always look up the Spark Notes and do the bare minimum. So I'd not call myself an avid reader. I don't read for fun ever. I watch YouTube videos. And on that first practice test, actually, it was like correct for like sentence correction LR. And then reading comp, it was wrong, back to sentence correction getting right. So I would get all of these reading comp questions wrong, even on the easiest passages. So the reading comp was a big area that I had to improve on, and just a lot of strategies going into it. Like I said, the doing it with my friend helped a lot, like analyzing the text and finding the answers. I think the special thing about reading comp compared to all the other sections is that the answers are usually right there in the text. There's no conclusions that you really have to come to, like in LR. Sentence correction, you have to know certain rules. Quant, you have to know background knowledge and apply it. But reading comp, for most part, it's there. So it's really an acquired skill to try to be able to find certain things in the passage, piece them together, and then be able to draw from those when you go to answer the question. So that's a big thing I had to learn. For me, my approach that I found worked, when I saw the passage, the first thing I would do is get interested in it. That was the biggest thing. Is first I would see a humanities passage. I had one about women in cheese making. I'm sure some of you guys have seen that one. And I was like, what the heck? Like, oh, this is so dumb. But really, like, it helps so much. If you look at the passage, it'd be like, okay, women in cheese making, what can I learn from this? And I thought, like, okay, I'm going to read this. If I was going to explain this to someone right after this in like 15, 20 seconds, I'm going to read this passage, interested in it, with the intent of being able to summarize it and tell someone, okay, women in cheesemaking is about the Industrial Revolution and how it impacted, like, you know, women's roles in society. That's what I want to find out from the passage. And both of those combined make you a really like focused and kind of avid reader in that paragraph. So that was my approach to them. I didn't do any note taking. You know, I was kind of stressed for time, so I thought that wasn't the best option. Really, just like mentally, like a picture. Okay, this part talks about this. This part talks about this. But I would do a thorough read through the first time. So there's a lot of things out there saying skim, read the first sentence, just any of those strategies. Really, I would sit down, not worry about time the first time, and just read it. And if I missed a sentence, if it didn't make sense, I would go back, read it again. So the initial read throughs is really for like deep understanding. And that allowed me to answer the questions in like 30, 40 seconds once I got that deep understanding.
We hope you enjoyed watching this video. If you did, don't forget to give it a like and subscribe to our channel for more informative content.